Hello, TARUC. How are you feeling? Good. I must preface this sharing by saying that the committees of TEDxTARUC are very thoughtful and very kind to me. They offered to help me yesterday. But I feel that in order to share about some of the challenges I face, it's better to just show you how I overcome some of the small challenges, like going up steps. And I would like to thank the committee for being considerate. But as I went up those steps, it reminded me of why I did it in the first place. I was about 13 years old, and I wanted to learn kompang. It's a Malay traditional instrument in my school. It wasn't compulsory, and so I decided to learn it. But the music class was three floors up. I knew at that point in time that nobody else in my class wanted to learn it. I wanted to do it. So how do I actually go up 3 floors? I can't ask him to come down. I knew that I could go up stairs slowly by sitting one step at a time and going up one step at a time and reaching where I wanted to go when I was younger. So I thought to myself, what if I can pull up my chair one step at a time and see whether it works? So I sat on the steps. I made sure nobody was around because I was shy. I pulled it one step. I went up in the other step. I pulled it another time. And I realized, oh, I can do 2 steps. So theoretically, I can go up 3 floors if I do it often enough. And so that was how I learned how to go up steps. Of course, I am very blessed and very fortunate because I'm more mobile than most people. I don't have a spinal injury. I was born with a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta. And essentially, it is just a very fancy name for brittle bones. And yeah, osteo is bones, genesis, formation, imperfecta. So imperfect bone formation. And in fact, I have type 1, which is the mildest form of this condition. And I was a cute kid. One of the toughest times I've always had as a child was physical education. The PE classes are always tough for me because, not because I was required to do so, it was simply because I was not allowed to do so. So my parents would tell the teachers, do not involve him in physical ed. And my friends would go out to play football, and I would watch from class. So that was one of the toughest times that I had. I have a lot of ambitions when I was young. I wanted to be a scientist because it sounded cool. I was the only standard 1 student who can spell scientist. So I said I wanted to be a scientist. I thought of doing stand-up comedy, but as you can see, it didn't work very well. And so I always daydreamed of being an athlete. And I remember I was going to college. I was applying to TAR. And at that point in time, it wasn't even a UC. It was TAR College. And it was during that time that I was thinking, now that I'm my own man, right? Maybe I can do things that I like. So I Googled Paralympic basketball. And the first picture I found was a guy with his wheelchair in mid-air trying to catch a ball. So I was thinking, probably not a good idea for anyone with brittle bones. So I came here, and I was really shy. I wasn't a person who could approach anyone when I first came here. I wouldn't say hi to people. I always waited for people to say hi to me. And I never could imagine I would be speaking in stages in different parts of the world to share about my story and to inspire people. But a lot of things started, in a sense, late for me. I started doing running, in a sense. It's mostly sitting, but wheelchair marathons, only after I graduated from TAR. So if you feel that you are a little bit too late in doing something, you're not. I got involved in sports only in 2012 when I got my first sports wheelchair. And this is an example of the lowest cost sports wheelchair you can find. I used to use a heavier set when I was in TARUC, and I've always wanted to try out marathons because I felt that life is like a marathon. Who here wants to do a sprint if that is your life? No, right? You want to go the distance. And I always thought that there's a lot of things I could learn from marathon running that can be translated to life. And I joined my first wheelchair race, not knowing anything. I didn't have any disabled friends or friends on wheelchairs, and I only got to know some people when they called me up and said, Daniel, do you want to join this wheelchair race? I went there with some hopes of winning, right? I thought, I'm pretty fit, I have trained a little bit, so I went there with some hopes of winning. On the first night, my dreams were crushed because they say, Daniel, meet, they introduced me to a guy and said, Daniel, meet Sunny, he is Malaysia's #1 wheelchair marathoner. And I said, nice to meet you. People around him just nodded and said, yeah, he is #1. So I went there with some hopes of winning, crushed the first night. So I thought to myself, how can I then, it's always easy to inspire when I'm the only one on the wheelchair in the room. So I brought a friend who is also on a wheelchair, so he has to be my competition for today. But I always thought, how do I inspire when everyone else is the same, right? So I decided that I wanted to show great sportsmanship. I always wear a message at my back back then in my races, and I decided that in order to inspire people, I wanted as many people to see that message as possible, and I decided to start last, right? So there were close to 200 people. I started last so that I can pass as many people as possible, and for me to get from where I was at the line to the starting line took me a minute. But my mind was so focused on, this is my strategy. My strategy was just look for someone, chase after the person, and then look for another one. So I was just chasing and chasing and chasing. It was a 3 km run, and it was like a U-turn. Before I knew it, there were 2 people in front of me. And I wasn't really thinking, because I was chasing like a mad dog chasing a bike. So I wasn't thinking that 2 people in front of me meant that I was third place at that point in time. And at the U-turn, I overtook the first person, and then there was suddenly nobody to chase, and I realized, oh no, what do I do now? Right? Do I go faster? Will I get cramps? Do I go all out? And in the end, I won first place with the second place coming in 45 seconds later. And that was how I knew I had some talent in racing. Then I went on to distances, so I went for my first half marathon the year after. And the year after that, I completed a full marathon in 4 hours, 21 minutes. But in between this time, from 2012 to 2014, there was something that I did in 2013 that I do not recommend to anyone. So do not do this. My friend and I, you see the guy on the left with the bald head, his name is Alex, the other guy is Kyle. So Alex approached me and said, Daniel, I'm organizing this 100 km run to raise funds for the Dignity for Children Foundation, to raise funds for underprivileged children for education. And I said, do you want to do, at that point in time, my longest distance was 21 km. And Alex said, do you want to do your first full marathon here? And he will run the 100 km, I will do 42. I said, yes. A few weeks later, because I spent some time with the children and I felt so inspired by them, and I was so inspired by their spirit, I felt that I wanted to do something more. I called Alex and said, Alex, this may sound crazy, but please entertain me for a bit. I want to train as if I'm doing the 100 km. But if I can't do it on that day, I won't try to be a hero. And before I knew it, the day came. Long story short, we spent 8 months preparing, training, having a nutritionist to take care of our diets and everything. And we completed 100 km in 17 hours and raised over 168,000 people. But I've always wanted to be in the Paralympics. I watched the 2008 opening ceremony of the Paralympics and I said, one day I wanted to be there. And I thought, I have some talent in racing, so why not? But they told me in Malaysia, there's nobody doing racing. So I said, how then can I go to the Paralympics? I still had that dream. So I joined sitting volleyball, and I played sitting volleyball for the Asian Youth Games. And we did quite badly, but it was such an experience, and it was an honor for me to be able to become the athlete representative, because it really carries the spirit of the sport, and I believe the spirit is one of the most important things for an athlete. Right now, despite challenges, I decided after sitting volleyball, I've retired from it. I felt that my potential is still in racing. I decided that I want to train for the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics in wheelchair racing. And this is what they told me. They said, there's no coach who is able to teach racing in Malaysia. There's no funding, there's no program. If you want to do this, you have to do this on your own. And this is what I'm currently doing. And I would like to share some of the things that or some of the principles I use to overcome the challenges, and not just looking at challenges as problems, but really, as some of the speakers have already mentioned today, looking at challenges or problems as opportunities. And one of the first important things is to find out your why. Who here knows, who here who's a student knows what you want to do in life after this? And, yeah, and it's very common. I've always been a guy that most people say, how come Daniel, how do you know your purpose so early on? Why do you seem so sure about your purpose? I don't think I'm anything special in that sense. The only difference I had among myself and my peers is the fact that I asked that question much early on. Most of my friends, and don't raise your hands if you relate to it here, but most of my friends will only think about what they want to do in life one semester before they graduate. Or 2 semesters, right? So, oh man, what do I do now? I'm graduating. Do I want to be an accountant, or do I want to chase my dream? It's always that. I asked that question much early on. As a first-year student, I asked myself, what do I want to do in life? What is it that I want to create for myself and my future? And I believe that finding your why doesn't have to be that big. You don't have to immediately start thinking about what you want to do in life. I think start with searching for opportunities to see where your talents lie. I think the best time to search for that why and that talent of yours is here while you're in uni. And I grew so much in TAR, and I believe that was the reason why I went from not being able to speak in a crowd to speaking all around the world in public, and to pursue my dreams as an athlete. But the key thing is to be able to ask that question early on. Why am I doing this? Or look for things like, what am I good at? What is it that I like to do? Why do I like doing it? And then hopefully you will be able to find your purpose in life early on. I always believe also when you have a destination, you don't change it just because there was a roadblock, right? So you're supposed to go to the movies with your date, and suddenly there's a roadblock. Do you decide to go somewhere else? No, right? You take a detour and meet the person there, right? I always believe that whatever goals that I have or whatever plans that you have, there will be challenges that come along the way. And instead of changing that destination, that goal of yours, take a detour. Change your path. Change your plans to reach your goals. And I believe that is one key thing. I've had many challenges along the way, and I had dreams of qualifying for the Asian Games this year. But early on this year, in January, I broke a rib. In February, I fell down from my chair, injured my leg. In May, I just had an eye surgery because of partial retinal detachment. And the doctor said you could go blind. I said, I'm already disabled. I can't go any more disabled than this. I can't afford to do it. But that was the mentality I had. When the moment I was in the hospital, I started planning, what can I do, even though it takes me longer? What can I do now that will bring me to Tokyo 2020? One of the things that I enjoy is boxing. I know I'm not supposed to do that with brittle bones, but I always believe that if you find your limitations, you can always find a way to overcome it. I knew that I had brittle bones. So what I did was, my friend was one of the coaches for an MMA gym, and I said, can you teach me how to box? He said, are you sure? I said, let's start slow and soft. And what I found out is that every time I felt comfortable at that level, he raised up the level a bit. And when I felt comfortable at that level of sparring, he raised it up more and more and more. And I believe that the way to see problems as opportunities is to find the limitations that you have. And you go beyond that limitation, even though it is just one step beyond. Last but not least, I always believe that in order to truly make an impact in the world, you have to live for a purpose greater than yourself. It can start small. It can start with yourself, but the greatest people in the world that creates the greatest impact, more often than not, are people who have a purpose that's bigger than themselves. So yes, some of you may be at that stage of finding out what I want to do in life, what's my why even. But I would like to encourage you to look beyond that and start looking at a purpose bigger than yourself. We always find motivation and strength in doing something for somebody else, just like I did the 100 km for the children. And I believe that if you really look at the principle and you say that you make a difference and you believe that you make a difference, you will start doing things and looking at challenges as opportunities, because all the challenges that you go through today will be a difference to somebody else tomorrow. The challenges that you go through, if you find a purpose in it and use it, you can truly make a difference. Nick Vujicic, taking away the whole cliche of, if he can do it, you can do it too aside. He is essentially a man who struggled with life, and in the end decided to use that pain, that challenge, as a way to touch lives. And that's why we admire him. That's why he's such an inspiration to all of us. But really, it is about making a difference. And if there's anything that you want to bring back today, is the thought that you truly make a difference in this world. Because I believe that life is like a marathon. And to start a race well is important, but it's never as important as the decision to finish strong. Thank you.